Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. Our guest today is Pat Iyer. Speakers, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs rely on Pat's skills as an editor, book coach, and ghostwriter. Her first book came out in 1986. Since then, Pat's written or edited 48 more books. In addition, Pat is the co-host of the National Speakers Association Authors Group and has been a member of NSA since 2008. Pat, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure planning this and thinking through what I would like to share and what might be of interest to your listeners.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. So, what are the benefits for a business owner in writing a book?
It's huge visibility, Diane. The opportunity to connect with people who you would never be able to reach otherwise. And the fact that you have written a book, and this is a little secret, Diane, even if somebody doesn't open your book and read it, the fact that you have written it is already impressive.
That's right. People are so impressed when you tell them that you've actually written a book, because everybody wants to write a book. Would you even suggest that a CEO would benefit from writing a book?
I have gotten several books from CEOs who've written their books. One of the things that we may not realize is that the CEO job typically lasts for about 3 to 4 years, and then they're ready to move on. Many CEOs enjoy the challenges associated with coming in, turning around a company, accomplishing things, and then their ambitions move them to a new company. So having written a book helps with that process and the knowledge that they put in the book, that the research that you need to do, the way that you crystallize your thoughts, maybe that book is written from the thought leader perspective. That's another piece of the CEO's accomplishments.
Right. A career builder, if you will, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So tell us about your first book and where did that take you?
My first book was a workbook. Back in the 1980s, we talked about self-learning modules, which become workbooks or handbooks now. I was asked by my nursing administration, I was working as the director of staff development at the time, to teach a particular concept in nursing to all the nurses in this large multi-bed, 400-bed hospital in Trenton, New Jersey. And there were a couple of other of my education colleagues in different hospitals in Trenton who had the same request. So we said, well, all three of us have to teach this. Why don't we go together and co-author this self-learning module? Which we did. It was successful. We thought, it's worked so well for us, I bet we could get this published. We went to the major nursing publisher at the time, and the publisher said, it's a great workbook. It's fine as a workbook, but we need to sell textbooks. We can't sell this the way it is. You need to flesh it out and turn it into a textbook. And we said, that's too much work. We'll find somebody who will accept it the way it is. We went to the second publisher who said the same thing. And at that point, we decided to listen and we signed a contract. Over the next 6 months, we wrote this textbook, which then sold in the United States. It was translated into Spanish, into Portuguese, into Japanese. And it gave all of us credibility. I used it then to be part of my resume, and I started approaching attorneys and saying to them, I could review your cases and testify as an expert witness on medical surgical cases. Those are the general duty floors, post-op patients, people with medical problems. I started getting hired right away. A couple of years into being an expert witness, a plaintiff attorney contacted me and he said, I've got an emergency room case. I hear you're an expert witness. In his mind, a nurse is a nurse is a nurse, not being aware of all the levels of specialty. I said, that's not my specialty, but I have a friend back in that hospital where I used to work who is an excellent ER nurse, clinical specialist. She would be great. I put the two of them together And you know, Diane, those moments when the light bulb goes off over your head and you say, I just did him a favor. If he wins the case, he's going to make money. She's going to bill him directly. She's going to make money. I just connected them, but I didn't benefit financially from that. I wonder if there's a business supplying expert witnesses. It turned out there was an extremely hungry market with attorneys who wanted well-qualified, trained expert witnesses. So I parlayed that into, by the time I sold the company, after 28 years, I had 200 experts under contract to review cases for me. And the reason that it became such a big business is that I kept 50 cents of every dollar that we billed the attorneys. So we had a business that was billing more than $1 million a year through the process of supplying experts. We did some work, of course, for that. We trained them. We organized the medical records. We interfaced. We supported them. And that became a business that I could sell and then live in Florida in the wintertime, as we were discussing before we started recording.
That is amazing. My goodness, kudos to you. That is taking your talents and just exploding them. I mean, you know, you just kept growing and growing and growing. And this is what people don't understand about business. I think they don't understand how one thing leads to another.
If you're open to opportunities and if you calculate them, I never would have guessed when we wrote that first book, I would end up testifying for 25 years myself. Nothing in nursing school taught me how to run a business. As I'm sure some of your listeners and viewers for this podcast, you didn't receive any kind of basic business education, but by paying attention to things and putting them together, you make those connections. Like Diane, we became multi-level distributors for a soap company in the 1980s. I figured out after a while that I was destined to do different things other than to sell cosmetics and soap. But if you remember, and for the listeners who've ever been part of this, if you have a structure, you have a person at the top, and then you've got a layer of people below them, and then below them there are people. I learned from that multi-level marketing company that if I got a piece of all of my distributors' actions, then I would become wealthy. So that came directly into supplying expert witnesses. I could have charged a flat fee and then walked away from that transaction, but I calculated that I would make more money from my company if I took a piece of every single hour that they worked. So they were literally making money for me on weekends, on evenings, while I slept. And it was a beautiful model. It still is a beautiful model.
So, Pat, tell me, what are some of the most popular publishing options today? There's so many more than there used to be.
Used to be only the choices of traditional publisher and the vanity press. The traditional publisher now is in a fight for his or her life because independent publishing, which is another term for self-publishing, has dominated the market and still to this day is growing and becoming stronger and more flexible. The traditional publisher takes a large portion of the income that's earned from that book. I have gone on from that first book to have written or edited 49 of my own books. And probably half of those are the big multi-volume hardbound books, which I wrote for legal nurse consultants and attorneys. I get 10 to 12% of the wholesale price of that book after the printing costs are subtracted from the retail price. Well, that amounts to a nice check that comes in twice a year. And the publisher did all of the work in terms of the copy editing, the getting it printed, the marketing of that book. Now, traditional publishers are expecting the authors to sometimes even make a financial investment in order to be part of their project. Two first-time authors who I met in Fort Lauderdale, I guess about a year and a half ago, said that they approached one of the traditional publishers who said, great idea for a book, but we don't know you, you haven't written before. You must invest $50,000 for the marketing costs for us to take you on. This is a well-known publisher. You would recognize its name. And they said, just like you're saying, Diane, they said, I don't think so. That's not in our plans. In order to get a traditional publisher to have you become one of their authors, you really need to go through an agent to represent you because they've got the relationships and they can cut through that pile of unsolicited manuscripts that the publisher receives every day. And the agent receives their income directly from the publisher. So you don't have to pay them on a per sale basis, but they're getting it off the top as well. And they also know which publishers want which type of book, which genre, so they know who to approach. And the first thing that the publisher says is, well, Diane, what's your platform? How many followers do you have on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Facebook? What are you going to do to promote this book? Are you a speaker? Are you a consultant? How are you going to get the word out? And if you're, gee, I've got 10 people who are my friends on Facebook, they're going to say, not a big enough platform. So the traditional publishers gave rise to the vanity press who say, yes, Diane, we're happy to produce your book. It's going to cost you to have your book edited, to be laid out, your cover design. Maybe we'll do some marketing, maybe we won't, because we're really primarily interested in getting your credit card number, Diane. And actually helping you sell books is not one of our priorities. And by the way, you have to buy 500 copies of your book. You've probably heard those stories of the truck that pulls up to the door and then the author goes, oh boy, 500 books, that's a lot of volume. You know, why are you bringing in pallets of boxes? And they sit in the garage, in the spare bedroom. I heard a story of a man who filled his entire living room with his books. That used to be the only model other than traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, and the costs are significant. I met a woman who told me that she got a 45-page contract, and there was one paragraph on one of those pages that committed her to spending $17,000 on her book. And it's not a book that's going to sell $17,000 worth of sales. So then independent publishing came up to fill that gap of you're not qualified for a traditional publisher to be interested in you. You're not going to be a surefire winner. You don't want to invest several thousands of dollars in a hybrid publisher with sometimes unknown costs that can come back and haunt you when you're already partway through and then you find out you have to spend more. When you upload a book onto Kindle Direct Publishing charges you nothing to use their platform. That's the Amazon platform. You do have to invest some money to get to that point. You should have a professional editor. You should have a cover design that looks professional. You should pay somebody to lay out your book and make sure that it doesn't look like it's homemade, which some of the independently published books do look homemade. And then you have the power of Amazon selling your book. Now, and then the other aspect of that is that it's print on demand, which means that they're only printing one copy of the book at a time. If you order a book on Amazon today, Diane, they're not going to open up a box and say, oh, well, this is Diane's copy and that's John's copy. They literally print it when they get the order. So they don't carry that overhead and use up warehouse space with boxes of books.
Well, those are certainly obstacles to getting a book published, but what are some of the obstacles that keep people from even starting to write a book in the first place?
What I hear is a lot of fear. Is it going to be any good? Are people going to be interested in what I have to say? Am I going to be a failure at this? Sometimes our teachers plant messages in our brains like, you're not a good writer. You're getting C's and D's in your compositions. Now, it is true, there are some people who really struggle with writing, but that's why professional editors help them to, or book coaches help them to get their ideas out. And is it going to take too much time? How much time does it take to sit down and write a book? You can write a book 30 minutes a day if you've got a well laid out plan, or you could work on this on a weekend, or I recommend whenever you're most productive, when you know that the creative juices are flowing, you're not going to be distracted, you've got a chunk of time. But I think the killer is the perfectionistic tendency. That leaves more books on hard drives than any other factor. An example of this is a woman who came to me and asked me to edit her book. She went up to the top of a mountain to get her son and her husband at a Boy Scout camp. She was talking to her husband. Her husband was 39, she was 34. And he started rubbing his chest and he said, "I don't feel so good." And he fell off the chair and died in front of her. She did CPR. The ambulance was 45 minutes away. He was at 39, dead from a heart attack. She had never expected this would ever happen. She had to figure out how to get his body down, how to get him cremated. What do you do with the ashes? Do they come in the mail? Do they get hand delivered? What do you do with all of the bank accounts, the whole process? So she wrote a wonderful book about her experience and let it sit on her computer for 15 years. And one of her colleagues finally convinced her to turn it over to me for editing. Now she's a speaker. Another advantage of writing a book, she launched a new career talking to people about how you get through a sudden loss. But in her mind, as a perfectionist, it was never good enough for her to be able to release until she said, "All right, I'm going to do this." That's one of the biggest barriers, is thinking it's not good enough, it's not quite finished, needs a little bit more fine tuning. I've run into several people who've needed that encouragement to finally let it go and let the world have that product.
That's really scary for a lot of people, is putting your expertise out in front of the entire world. And that is kind of a scary proposition, but
Mhm.
it's what you have to do. It's really what you have to do. Now, as a ghostwriter, Pat, how difficult is it to capture what somebody else is trying to convey?
When I do ghostwriting for books, I interview the author through a series of planned questions and record that, and then put in hours and hours and hours editing that, organizing it, rearranging it. It's not difficult to capture their knowledge. What the ghostwriter does is relieve that person who is not confident of their writing skills, relieve them of the struggle. And it also enriches the book because, for example, I ghost wrote a book on body language secrets to win more negotiations. I negotiated a lot with attorneys. They are very good at arguing their case. I could bring in some of my experiences having owned this successful business of, let's give this example. When you're bouncing ideas off another person, you end up getting a new perspective. And you can also lose objectivity when you are writing your own material. Somebody else can say, "But what about this piece? You didn't include anything about this section." A ghostwriter brings in those concepts to make the product more well-rounded.
And you've talked about nursing, the medical field today. You just talked about another topic. So you write books on any topic, and also, and I want you to tell that to our viewers so they don't hesitate to bring you their topic. But also, how do you change your mind from, concentrate on one topic to the next topic? Let's say you're writing 3 books at a time.
It's not difficult. It's opening up the file folder in your brain. As women, as nurses, we're real good at multitasking. You switch from thing to thing to thing. I describe when you work in the hospital and you're walking down a hall, you've got 8 patients who need your attention. You're thinking, well, I've got to call that doctor to get an order for this patient, and that patient wanted something for pain, and this one asked me for a box of tissues, and now I've got to stop and help my colleague turn a patient on his side. It's just, it flows. I do primarily business writing and medical writing and editing. I do not have any experience with fiction, poetry, or children's books. Those are their own special areas, and I don't offer people assistance with those types of books. But nonfiction books, business books, medical books, memoirs, those are all comfortable areas for me.
Mm. You mentioned, of course, how you take care of patients, and now you do some consulting for nurses. I'd like to talk about that for just a second, if you don't mind. How is it that you help? These are nurses that are not connected to hospitals. Is that correct?
Some of the nurses who work with attorneys are working clinically in a variety of settings. They are clinical nurses who decide that they really love the problem-solving aspect of uncovering puzzles. When you are working on a medical case with lots of medical records, even one word can make a difference, particularly if it's a medical malpractice case, trying to reconstruct what happened, or a personal injury case. I'll give you an example. There was a man who was working on a roof, and he slid off the roof, and he landed on both of his ankles, and he fractured both of his ankles and his legs. The attorney who hired us wanted us to summarize his medical records, and I had a nurse employee who was working for me at the time. And the attorney called me up after he got our summary and he'd gone to court, and he said, my adversary said to me, hey, your guy was drunk at the time that he fell off the roof. Well, my employee hadn't looked at the lab results and didn't realize that this guy's blood alcohol level was real high. And I didn't specifically say to her, be sure to check the labs. I thought she knew that she should. Well, just that one lab result changed the entire case. My client was nice to me. He could have stormed through the telephone line. He continued to give us work. I apologized to him. It was a learning experience with my employee. You have to be very detail-oriented. I think in probably every business, Diane, you have to be able to focus on the details. When you're unraveling medical records, that's an important skill, because that can change the entire case.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Pat, you make another good point that we all make mistakes, but we have to recover and be resilient. So I understand you have a gift for our audience today. Tell me about that.
I do. I have an ebook that I put together that includes some tips on writing, the ways that you can polish your writing so that it is smooth and you're proud of what you've written. It's called Writing Rules and Wrongs, and I have a short link to get there. It is a digital download. It gives you a quick read and reinforces some of the things that you were taught about writing, or maybe forgot, or maybe it's new to begin with.
Great. Pat, what's the best way for people to contact you to get you to help them with their book?
It would be through my website, which is patiyer.com. My last name is spelled Iyer. My husband is from India, and the capital I looks a lot like a capital L. So I always want to make sure that people know it's Iyer, not liar. If you can imagine, Diane, going into court and having the court reporter say to you, Pat, liar, would you raise your right hand? Never happened to me, luckily, because the question before that is, would you please say and spell your name for the jury? And then I get a chance to say it's Iyer.
Oh my goodness, yes, that would not be good. For
There
sure.
goes the credibility right in the beginning.
Right, right.
That's a liar. Oh, we're going to listen to this lady and believe her. Sure.
Any parting words of wisdom, Pat?
I think it's to encourage you if you have the idea of a book inside you, like this woman who had the book sitting there for 15 years. Think of all the people she could have helped in that 15 years. Get it out of your hard drive, get it out of your head, get it into somebody's hands because you have no idea, first of all, who you can help with your book, and secondly, what opportunities will open up to you as a result of having written a book.
Wise words indeed. Wise words indeed. Pat, thank you so much. You have brought so much good information to the audience, and I really appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
You're most welcome. It's been fun, Diana. This is a subject I love to talk about, and I've seen the results of people who've written books and what it's done for them and their businesses and their lives, and it's so rewarding.
Yes. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Pat Iyer, editor, book coach, ghostwriter, and legal nurse consultant. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.